Well, thank you for coming to this fourth of our World Travel Market Travel Perspective sessions. I'm sure that those who've been to the others have found it all fascinating. Now, one of the things that we do at Travel Perspective is work with travel and tourism organisations on their social media communities and the community management. And quite often we talk to travel companies, and one of the things they say is we actually don't know how to start even doing this. They're very much still in the traditional mindset and really have no idea where to go. I mean, a lot of them will say, well, I've got some young person coming in here who's looking after that for me. But is that enough? And we would say, no, it's not enough. And this is why we really put this panel together. We thought it'd be really useful to go right back to basics and find out how you actually do the whole process of setting up your social media profiles, if that's something that you haven't done before. And we've got an expert panel to talk you through this. I'll just introduce them. We have Sarah Rathbone, who heads up Siren Communications, who thanks to you are our event partner again this year. Thanks for that. The company has many travel and tourism clients, and they work with them in areas of social media. She's going to talk to you about some of these sort of early stages of that. Sitting next to Sarah, we have Mark Henshaw, who's an author and content strategist from Contentscape, who's going to talk about his company, but also about starting out in content marketing, the sorts of things that you need to be posting on Facebook and Twitter to engage with your growing community. Next to Mark, we have Bart van Pol from a website called Spotted by Locals. I'm sure some of you will have seen that. A very, very interesting site. It's about tapping into local people who have inside knowledge of a destination. So what we're asking him is to talk about why you need to engage with those local communities when you're developing your social media presence. And then last but not least, we're very pleased to have Enrique Ruiz de Lera from the Spanish Tourist Office, who's going to talk about it from a practical sense, how Spain has actually managed this and got to the point where they are now. One of the leaders in the social media space, I would argue. So without any more ado, I'm going to ask each of them to come up here and talk for a few minutes. Then we'll open up for some questions as well, and I'm sure there'll be many of those. So please could you welcome Sarah Rathbone to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and good afternoon. So, as Mark said, we work with a lot of clients in the social media space. People come to us and say, we want to be on social media, and we say, well, great, but why? It's important to begin with to really understand what you want to get out of it before you start. And that means understanding the differences between the platforms, particularly the major platforms. So, this example here is a little old, so apologies for those of you that may have seen it before, but it's a great way of explaining the differences of how you would sort of talk about a similar subject within the different platforms. So the example here is eating a donut. For Twitter, which is about the here and the now, what I am doing, I'm eating the donut. Facebook, where I share my passions, my likes, I love eating donuts. Foursquare is location-based, so that might be where I've bought the donut or where I can buy one in the future. It's also based on my likes from other platforms. Instagram, which is image and now video-based. They've recently launched something called Hyperlapse, which allows you to embed video content in. This Instagram is quite an interesting one. It's become significantly higher profile over the last couple of years and more recently. It's performing particularly well for travel and tourism. For example, there are currently over 63 million images on Instagram hashtagged with the word beach, so you can see how it can work for travel, for tourism, for destinations. YouTube, now part of the Google empire, is video content. And LinkedIn, it's a network for professionals, so you might talk about your skills, why you're the best person at making or eating the donuts. Pinterest, just another example, is a mood board style content. You curate images together and pin them. So whilst this is fun and I won't talk about all of them, there's a serious message to this. You need to understand the differences between the platforms to choose which one is right for you. Most importantly, getting started, know your audience, identify your audience. So who are the people you want to talk to? Which platforms are they already active in and how can you become part of that? The tools and resources that you have also shape which platform. So, for example, there's no point saying, I want to be on Instagram if you don't have access to great images, or you don't have somebody who's very handy with the camera on a smartphone and can help you get that content. People often like the idea of social media because they believe that it's free, but good content carries a cost, good images, good photos. There's also the time, never underestimate the time and the investment in that to make it work particularly well. People often say as well, I want 1,000 followers, 1,000 fans, and that's all well and good, but we really recommend that you qualify this as relevant fans, followers. Look at the engagement more than just the numbers. So how many relevant people or organisations are responding to what you do in social? That figure is much more important than just an overall volume. Another measure of effectiveness, and one that we'd urge you to look at if you're setting out in social media, is to measure the traffic that it delivers back to your brand website. Tools such as Google Analytics, they're free, they're very simple and easy to use, and you can see some good metrics as to how you're working. Does your social media activity actually make people want to interact with your brand, your destination, even more? We also urge you to think clearly about the objectives. There are some common ones highlighted on the screen here, but what's important to you? Do you want to raise awareness? Do you want to give your brand more personality, bring that personality to life? Do you want to identify advocates? Do you want to nurture those people? Do you want to drive sales? Do you want to collect data? A lot of social media allows you to run competitions and things that do allow you to collect data in the right way. Or do you simply want to curate existing content, be that about your destination, your brand, and pull it all together in one place? That's one great way that social media can work as well. Deciding what you want to achieve then helps you choose the best platform to move forward. But do consider that it might mean that more than one platform is right for you, and quite often the content that works on one platform can't be used in exactly the same way on another. We generally talk about that as shattering the content, making it come to life in different ways for different platforms. So, for example, you may have a great video, but for that video, to use that on Twitter, Twitter has a service called Vine, which is 6-second videos. Twitter's Vine is very much has the same view as Twitter, that brevity is best, so it is very short, 6 seconds. So choose snippets, use those on Twitter. On Facebook, you might want to upload the full video, but also consider maybe a photo gallery of behind the scenes, how the video was made. On YouTube, it's a video sharing platform, share the video, but think about your channel subscribers. How can you get them involved? Maybe ask them, create your own version of this video, choose a winner, and then share, but importantly, credit that content on your own platforms. On LinkedIn, you may join video marketing groups and share your advice, your expertise, what you've learned. You might also endorse the people who've helped you make that video, for example. In terms of advice of getting started and how you manage content, so we would always recommend the use of a content plan. Now, I appreciate some of the words on this will be quite small, but it's just meant to be an example. We've done this here as if we were a New York specialist. So the reason we have content plans is that if you just have one person looking after your social media, if they're off sick, if they're in meetings all day, they go on holiday, your feed is going to be static, it's not going to be updated. A content plan means that anybody can go in and post those updates and that everybody's happy with them. It also helps you stay focused on your objectives, your tone of voice, and what you want to get across because you plan it in advance. I would say be very aware that your planned content should be less than half of the time and the posts and the interaction you do in social media. The rest is engagement, it's responding to the here and now, it's sharing new content that arrives that might be useful or relevant to your brand. It's key with a content plan to also identify things like no-go areas. What are you not going to talk about? And then on the flip side, what are your areas of focus? What's your the things you want to be famous for, the things you really want to deliver across everything you do? When you put people in charge of social media platforms, you need to empower them. They need to be able to make decisions, they need to be able to fix things, and they need to have confidence. And where appropriate, they need to have some fun with their community. This is a great example, and apologies to those at the back that can't read it. I'm afraid I'm actually not going to read it out because you will laugh if you come and have a look at it. This is an example of a customer service complaint to Argos. and Argos have responded in the same tone of voice as the complaint. Now that's with humour. It's what I believe might be called street speak, but because it's done in the same way, that was shared extensively online, and people could see the good-natured approach to which Argos handled this complaint. The reactive side of community management is often best. People talk about, should I work with an agency? Should I do it for myself? The reactive side is often best handled in-house if you're a travel business, things like being able to respond to maybe a booking inquiry or a customer service inquiry is not necessarily best placed done externally. That's where your internal people are great. But you must empower those people and have people across your business that can help whoever is in charge of the social media feed. Your external support should train your people, help set you up, give you confidence. It should aid with ideas for campaigns, for activities, setting your brand tone, but also think about how you then work with other influencers. How do you recruit them? And then how do you manage and nurture those relationships, which will really help increase your reach. Monitoring, finally, one of the most important things about social media. People always want to know how they can see what it may have delivered. First up, some of the best advice for monitoring is really get to know your community, learn what works, what they respond to, what they share, and do more of that. Consider in that point of view as well, looking at the times of day that work the most. It's quite common, Facebook say that around 6 p.m. in the UK is some of their most active time. For a lot of businesses, the people looking at their social media may not be at work at that time. How do you plan around that? There are also some great free tools that can help you report on your social media activity. I mentioned Google Analytics that will show where it sends web traffic. Some of my favourites, Tagboard. Tagboard is very, very visual. It pulls in content and shares it in one place, so you can very quickly see the sentiment against a particular hashtag or a keyword. Social Bakers I love as well, because it has you can check if people are fake followers, so coming back to that point about engagement, are you actually talking to real people? Social Mention can give you a sentiment analysis, how positive, negative, or neutral is your community. That's important to know and measure. Tweet Reach or Tweet Archivist, both their free tools will allow you to look at tweet volume, reach, keywords used, and top posters over the last 7 days. You can subscribe to have access to more data. If you've got big budgets, the one that really stands out is called Radian 6. It allows you to monitor not just social communities, but other online environments, be that news or blogs, and be able to respond very, very quickly. But the most important factor in social media comes down to just remembering that you're having a conversation. It is empowered by technology. Use your common sense. Get to know your audience, what makes them tick, but never ever say anything you wouldn't be comfortable saying to your mum. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Mark. I'm a travel journalist and a content strategist. I've been working in content for about 15 years, but the last several years I've been working within a sort of triangle of search and social media and content. That's kind of what I'm interested in. What I'd like to talk to you today about is how to build a social presence and social engagement through content, and how content can help you build that platform of social followers and social engagement. So the brand that I found quite interesting this year in terms of what it's been doing with the content is Air Mauritius. First of all, because it's a challenger brand, so it may be where quite a lot of you guys are starting out at the moment. It's up against people like BA and Emirates and Tues. Really needs to find its own path. It started its Made in Mauritius blog in January with a digital agency called Cube. I'm not part of Cube, so I think I can speak quite impartially about this. It's just something I like. And what's interesting is the way they've worked with their partners and their customers to carve out a space for Mauritius and for Air Mauritius in what's quite a competitive market. So in less than 6 months, and I know you might not be able to see all of these words at the back, they've managed to amass over 500,000 Facebook followers through their unique blog. And I think they've really changed the perception of Mauritius in the way that they've gone about their blog, the variety of themes and topics the different influencers and niche communities they're reaching out to. And the important thing is it's been interwoven into their business strategy, so retaining customers, reaching out to new customers, getting out into this diversity of communities who might be interested in a Mauritian holiday. How have they done this? Well, the key challenge is that you need to differentiate in this space, of course. It's very competitive, and you also need to appeal to a wide audience. But often what happens when we come to a blog is we get this kind of content clutter. Too many travel blogs are cluttered and confusing. We've got this kind of stream of information that we're all subjected to these days. There's a famous quote from Eric Schmidt from Google that you're probably familiar with, which is that every 2 days now we create as much information as we had up until 2003. So it's kind of sprains your brain a bit thinking about that. But this goes alongside a kind of scarcity of attention. What we often think of as our content, which is our stock, is someone else's flow. It's not getting recognised. It's just part of that stream that's going past people. So what we need to do when we're telling brand stories is try to impose a narrative and a kind of shape on your story to give it some meaning. Otherwise, we're just kind of adding to that stream of information. We're just adding to the rubbish tip, and it feels a bit like just fly tipping. We're just adding more and more information, which isn't going to be seen by anyone. What I think the Made in Mauritius blog does well, it avoids a common mistake, which is it's not ignoring its user needs. It's listening to customer questions, and it's trying to reach out for them with answers. So when people first turn up at the blog, it's answering that question, what's in it for me? It's quite a distinctive blog. They're really setting out with a vision to redefine the airline blog, deepening the relationship with customers, taking them on that, if you kind of familiar with Google's travel journey, dreaming at the top of the travel funnel, going around to planning, answering people's questions, imbuing their brand with a sense of trust so people feel it's transparent and they can book in with them, and really delivering on the brand promise afterwards, and becoming and getting customers to become advocates. So it's increasing web traffic, it's increasing sales, it's nudging people towards loyalty, assisted conversions, and it's playing a key role in the customer journey. And that's important because with this blog in particular, they've got professional travel writers, some really good travel writers working for this blog. So we know they're serious about it, but they're also including Mauritian airline staff, they're including tourism boards, hoteliers, bloggers, tour operators. And because you've got all of this content, it's really important that it's consistent but not uniform, but people kind of get you, they buy into your brand. Working with all these partners, it's important that you've got a kind of integrity around your vision and a clarity about it. If anyone started a blog here or anybody runs a blog, you'll know how difficult it is. Once you've got that blog in place, lots of people will come at you from all directions with different motivations to kind of get on your blog. And I think it's learning to say no, really. So if it is a Mauritian hotelier who's coming to their blog and says, can we get this up on your, can we guest post, can we get a piece of information up on your site? It's saying to them, actually, you know, although we're affiliated, this isn't our vision, you know, this isn't quite right for us, you know, go back and reshape it, or perhaps we can do something different with you. But it's a really clear focus they've got to create a path to consume more. And that's what they're doing. They're creating a path for travellers and readers to consume more of their information and feel more affiliated with their brand. This is what it looks like. It's very colourful. There's a lot of photography, lots of different topics. And by listening to the questions that travellers and customers are asking, they're able to use that insight to then create compelling content that influencers love to share. It's recommendable content that goes a long way. And this isn't just fueling social, because they're going out to beyond that sort of travel funnel. So they're going into wildlife and music and diving and all these other different niche communities. Those diversity of links, that diversity of authority that's being conferred on this blog, people like, you know, Google, the search engines, love this because it's saying all of these different areas, this is what this blog's about, this is how it's authoritative. It really sends out a message that it's a blog to be trusted, and this brand has got a real value to it in terms of why people are trying to engage with it. We know this is more important than ever because people trust recommendations more than ads. And it's becoming harder and harder to get seen by, people like the big boys we were hearing about this morning, likes of Facebook. I'm certainly not against paid social at all. I think it's a really useful tool. But if we're talking about earned media here for a minute, then it's harder and harder to kind of get into your readers' stream and be seen by them and make sense to them. So in connecting content with social, Air Mauritius has been able to get ahead of the competition by concentrating on its key advocates. Cube's got its own advocate program called Cubist, but there's lots of different advocate programs out there. What it does is it targets a small amount of influencers, and it tries to give those influencers some really unique content. So if it was a unique piece of content in a wildlife community, it would be something that influencer would want to share with the whole of that wildlife community. So it's relevant content for that user. It's pertinent to them, and it's not just adding to the kind of rubbish dump as I was talking about before. This is important because if you've got some key influencers who are willing to share that information, it's going to be much more effective than the average Facebook user who may or may not use it. It's kind of to the power of, I think they had 300 times more likely within Cubist, the people they work with, to share something than an ordinary user. So by using advocates in this way and helping advocates share their stories, once they've had a Mauritian holiday or they're using Mauritian content in some way, Air Mauritius has been able to share its brand stories. And what I like about what they've done, just to finish off, is that rather than just paying lip service to collaboration, they're really engaging with it and using it as a new way to do business. With all the different partners they're working with, they're able to branch out to all of these different people, but because they've got this clarity of vision and they're very strict about what they'll put up there, it really resonates across all of their channels. So there's no kind of cognitive dissonance about it. People get the brand. They've given their content a bit of love. They've given their vision a bit of soul and integrity, if you like. And around that, they've created unique content that's both fueled social and search and has made a business impact. Thank you very much.
Okay. That's it there.
Yep. Okay. Thanks. Okay, I'm really happy with the presentations before me by Sarah and Mark, because they talked a lot about strategy, and I'm not going to talk about that. I just want to tell you a bit about our experiences with Spotted by Locals. My name is Bart. I'm the co-founder of Spotted by Locals. And before I tell you what we do with social media, I'll tell you a bit about Spotted by Locals. We started in 2008. My wife and I, Sanne, we both traveled a lot. I was a management consultant and traveled abroad a lot, worked there. And also during holidays, we traveled a lot to cities. And what we found was the problem with the travel guides that we used, user-generated content, apps and websites. We found them a bit impersonal. We didn't know if we could trust these people behind these reviews. No pictures, are they a local or not, things like that. Also, we used a lot of traditional guidebooks. Like these. What we found was a problem. They are great for the highlights, for the background, for the history of the city, but not if you want to know what locals do. We found a lot of out-of-date information in these guides. So as a traveler, we were a bit frustrated by what was available for us. And as travelers, we found it much more interesting to sit at a local bar like this, instead of our best memories are there and not of the Eiffel Tower of the Sagrada Familia. It's the best memories for us are talking to locals, following some locals around. That's one of the methods we employed, and ending up at a club somewhere in the middle of nowhere. That meant so much more for us than highlights. So we thought there should be something like Spotted by Locals, a network of blogs written by locals who write about their favorite spots. So that's what we did in 2008. We hit the road with our old car. It was about to break down, drove to 20 cities and met hundreds of locals who we started Spotted by Locals with. It's a network of 57 guides, blogs, but also apps, written by locals and always up to date. That's basically it. But besides the concept for us, for San and me, and for 310 spotters, as we call them, it's a community. Last weekend we had a weekend on boats in Amsterdam. 100 spotters came. This is an old picture of 2 years ago, but we used the same boats. I didn't have time to include the pictures yet, but it was amazing. That's interesting. I'll tell you a bit about what we do with social media. That's what Mark asked me. As I said, I don't have any real strategies and nice methodologies, but I think two things that are unique for Spotted by Locals. We don't have a budget for social media, so we do everything for free, and we think that really works well for us. The other one that I wanted to mention. What's happening here? And we have a community of spotters. They help us a lot. I'll tell you a bit about that later. What do we do on social media? We do recruitment, basically. It's not commercial recruitment, but we talk about our spotters and we let them talk about themselves. And this is the way we find more people who are willing to share tips for their cities. We share trends on social media. We think of ourselves as a bit of a trend watcher in what's going on in cities, and these are the type of posts that work best for us. When we were in Moscow a few months ago, we learned about anti-cafes, and our spotters in Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Madrid also wrote about it, and we thought it was an interesting development to share. That's one of the things we do. Also, of course, we also promote ourselves, our spots, and ourselves as a company. A lot of personal pictures on our Instagram, for example. We don't sell anything on social media. I think that's also unique. We just brand ourselves. And we work with tourist boards to promote their cities. For example, with the Paris Tourist Board, we share a monthly tip with them, and they publish it. Their readers love it, and we do too, because we get a lot of new visitors. And we do this with about 10 tourist boards in Europe and also North America. We also work with tourist boards, or we help tourist boards. They don't It's not a corporation, but in newspapers, for example, we worked with The Guardian before a few years ago, Süddeutsche Zeitung, and this is a Dutch newspaper. We promote cities, basically. In another way than many others do. We focus on the spots that locals like. If you have any questions, let me know. If you're a tourist board or a brand who wants to work with our locals, work with our interesting audience of frequent travelers, please get in touch. Thank you.
Well, good morning, buenos dias. My name is Enrique Ruiz. I'm a director of Spain Tourist Board here in the UK. And we had a great presentation, but we were told that no slides. So it was great, had a lot of football pictures, half-naked people in beaches, everything that works, very visual. But I'll go along without the PowerPoint. So we're not here to teach anything because we're still learning. We've been 5 years now building up a community in Facebook, in Twitter, in Instagram now. We have now over 1 million followers, but we still don't know how this works. And we still don't know how this works because the rules are changing every day. And we feel a little bit like Facebook is moving the goalposts all the time. I'll talk a bit more about that later. For you to understand a bit where I come from, I've been promoting Spain for 15 years. I started in Berlin, then I moved to Brazil, and I took care of Asia Pacific in Singapore. Those times there were no social media, so marketing a country was very easy. They give you the money, and you buy some print media, some ads in TV. You do some promotions for consumers. Was really easy. Now it's very difficult. You have to read a lot and to keep on the loop. Now, in 2009, I was promoted to global head of marketing of Spain. At that time, we had over 200,000 fans in Facebook already. When I left in end of 2011, we had 800,000. So we built 550,000 fans in less than 3 years. How did we do that? Well, investing a lot of money. Doing a lot of display advertising. And the first misconception is that social media is, for tourist boards and for countries as big as Spain, is cheap or even free. It is not at the moment. It's very difficult to build and maintain large audiences without investment in labor or financially. Now, we had a great foundation for building up a community. First of all, because travel is inherently social. So there's nothing more social than sharing your travel pictures, your travel stories. When I see banks or finance companies trying to communicate with consumers in a social context, I feel pity for the poor marketing guys, because what can you tell now? It's true. What can you tell to consumers, especially after the financial crisis? How can you engage with consumers being a bank? But banks try, and some of them have some success, I've heard. So travel is social, and Spain has or received last year 62 million tourists, or 61, and 15 million from the UK. So we are the second country in the world in terms of expenditure, the third country most visited in the world. So we have a large amount of people that comes to Spain every year. And the most important thing, they're loyal to Spain. 82% have been to Spain before, 46% have been to Spain 10 or more times. So we have a huge loyal audience to build from to create this community. Now, we have used from 2009 to 2012 sports as a great engine to drive growth. So we first signed with Liverpool Football Club. How many Liverpool fans here? Raise your hands. One? Well, it looks it was a bad investment. Well, basically, Liverpool at the time was called Spanish Liverpool and had Torres, Rafa Benitez, had 6 players, right? And they had an audience of 500 million followers in Asia. And we were very interested in building an audience in Asia. So we teamed up with Liverpool. Then we signed an agreement with the national basketball team that went on winning the World Cup 3 months later. So we started using this in our social media, congratulating the national basketball team. Then after that, the South Africa World Cup came, and we signed an agreement with the Spanish national team, football team, that was already European champion, 1 month before the World Cup. This is another thing. You have to use marketing opportunities that are around you and drive growth through them in your social media. So what we did is when we reached the semifinals against Germany, any Germans in the room? No Germans in the room, good. So we won that semifinal, and what we did is we booked 1.5 million euros of advertising on Monday, July the 11th. That was the day after the World Cup final, congratulating Spain. And then my minister said, what happens if we lose? I said, well, we'll use an advertising that works both in defeat and in success. And that beautiful ad that we use said something like, congratulations, excuse me, boys, the way we play is the way we live. Because lifestyle is our USP, is our unique selling proposition. So we booked 1.5 million euros, 80 million impressions in Facebook, 80 million impressions in YouTube from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. of 11 July. I went to South Africa. Okay, I was there behind the goal when Iniesta scored in the 16th minute. I had a multiple orgasm that was not due to sports, but to marketing, to thinking on Monday we have 80 million impressions congratulating the Spanish national football team. So what happened on Monday morning is from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., we gained 200,000 fans in Facebook, which is, I've been told by Randy Zuckerberg, I met her in Barcelona, that's the largest increase in fans in such a short period of time. So another thing that you have to use, opportunities in sports, in cinema, in whatever, to get people engaged. And sports is, of course, what engages people more. Now, we started also advertising in MotoGP. On the year, 3 riders from Spain won all categories from MotoGP. And another thing interesting happened. We didn't have any Indonesian or Malaysian fans in our Facebook, and then suddenly we congratulated Jorge Lorenzo, and we had, bam, 37,000 Indonesian fans in 1 week. So that's the beauty of digital marketing, social media. You see results immediately when you do things properly. Now, one thing we learned is that high reach and low engagement is what we call the Facebook trap. We had 800,000 fans, but less than 10% were engaging with the brand. So what we have been doing in the last 3 years in the UK is building a smaller audience, but much more engaged. The Spain audience, it's 30% Spaniards, and that's something that Australia, the #1 brand in Facebook, knows very well because they use Australians as brand ambassadors. And we do use Spaniards, but we prefer to use British people, in the case of UK, to recommend Spain to other people. Now, what kind of contents work and what kind of contents do not work? 5 years ago, we said we need to do 3 things. We need to inform people, we need to inspire people, and we need to offer them some deals, some commercial offers, right? Immediately we saw that commercial offers don't work because, and this is my view, I don't think that nobody will ever sell anything in Facebook. I think Facebook is a social context, and trying to turn it into a commercial context won't work, because if you're talking to a friend in a pub having a pint, you don't want anybody to sell you anything there and interrupt the conversation. So I'm very skeptic about Facebook being commercial context and selling stuff there, which is a problem for them actually. Then the next thing that happened is that Facebook had their IPO, and we had already 800,000 fans. They do the IPO, and 2 weeks later they tell us, look, you cannot communicate now with your whole audience. Every time you post now, you will reach only 14% of your audience. So, hello, we spent 6 million euros to build this audience, and now you're telling me I have to pay again to talk to my audience? And this is something we didn't like. But we're still in Facebook, of course, because so far there are not so many alternatives, but there are some. And we believe Instagram is going to be the next big thing for tourist brands, for tourist boards. We have already our Instagram account. Engagement is much higher. It's much more visual. And it allows us to use user-generated content from people that had been to Spain, and we use that user-generated content in our branded content. So we have launched a magazine called SPN. I encourage all of you to take a look. It's for Mac, Apple, iPad, Android, all platforms, and it's a quarterly magazine. We produce all content, and that's another thing I like to say. Tourist boards used to be information desks. People would go to us and say, how do I book a train from Madrid to Barcelona? I'm talking 10 years ago. Now we have to turn into production companies. We have to create our content, produce our own video, our own photos, and this requires a different set of skills. I believe that social media should be managed, if possible, internally, in-house. And I believe that journalism is a skill that comes in very handy to be able to post content that is relevant, that it's inspirational, and we are all about inspiration now. We are not so much about information or deals. We are about inspiring people. And I think that's my 2 cents. Thank you very much.